Hello, Dario.
Hello, Neil. Look
How
at
are you?
this.
I know. Well, yeah, literally look at
Look
it.
at this.
Hopefully, it's all worked out and our Patreon subscribers are seeing as well as hearing. Apologies for not shaving. Um,
Get a haircut, man, will you?
I'm, I'm way beyond getting some clippers out now. It would be a futile attempt of any, even garden shears would not even dent this
Have you not
mop.
asked Beth for the old number one or something like that,
She would not like that.
No.
No, she loves the long hair. She's happy with it going
Oh,
uh,
right, okay.
going crazy, and I don't mind it. Uh, Yeah, I'm curious to see how big it's going to get before I can have it cut again.
Yeah.
Almost like a charity hair growing.
Yeah, you're going to be like, I hate to say it, but you'll be like one of those. What was that doll where you wound up when you were a kid and the hair grew out and then you could cut? My sister had it. It was
Yeah,
like like a little toy, and you wound Play-Doh or something into it and the
yeah,
hair
the
grew out and
Play-Doh.
then you
Yeah,
cut it.
yeah,
Be a
no,
bit
very
like
much
that,
so.
dude.
I'm going for the Leo Sayer.
Yeah.
Is what I'm going for. We'll see. Yeah, feel pretty good. How are you doing? All right?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I mean, this is interesting, but it's funny how all meetings seem to be like this now. And I just thought with this bonus episode, just a little something for the Patreon subscribers that could actually see our faces, and whether, I don't know, maybe we'll get some feedback as to whether that makes any difference to the content. I mean, after all, we've both been talking, and I've been writing, and you as well, been writing about the interrelationship between form and content, and here we are testing it out, I suppose.
See, I've gone for the sit in a room that's much more interesting than I am approach. So most people don't even know I'm here. They're too busy looking to see what's on the shelves
Yeah,
behind
just
me.
make sure there's no non-PC books on there, because you'll just get cancelled.
I
But it's all
know.
records behind you, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Yeah, I've hidden Mein Kampf, so Owen Jones won't have a
Yeah,
problem
I know.
with me.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't. I mean, I was thinking about getting one of my posters and sticking it up there, but I thought, that's just slightly too ostentatious. So
It's
at
got
least
to be
I've closed the
authentic. You got to be
wardrobe.
authentic, man. You
Yeah,
can't just. It's no pretense. This is how we are.
this is how we are. This is the real deal. Apart from that, I'm okay. Just trying to get things done. Really, I mean, there's just a lot going on. I've found at the moment. Writing another piece on podcasting where the deadline is the end of this month. So I'm in that, trying to fit that around dealing with the students and the everyday stuff. Obviously, we're still with the fallout of trying to migrate everything online and changing assessments. And that's proving pretty, time consuming and also stressful for the students as well. I mean, I'm not, taking it away from them that there is a lot of issues around this, and when you muck about with assessments at the last minute, it screws everybody up. But we haven't had a choice. What else could we do, really?
Yeah, I think we've just done the best we can, haven't we? And just hope that the students get that. What I've found is that students have really appreciated what the staff have done, and that the position that the staff are in, and most of their anxiety and stress has been targeted at the university, who they feel have not necessarily done as much, which says a lot, really. And we know that often there's a disconnect between how staff view the job and the work, and how the institution sees it, and a lot of that seems to be thrown into the spotlight
Yeah,
recently. But I've had a really good relationship with the students over the course of it, because most of them, bar a few wobbles, are just like, yeah, what can anybody do? It is unprecedented. So as long as you're doing your best, and marking's been interesting. Staff a lot more keen to talk about the marking, because it's not normal. The work is not just different in terms of the kind of work we normally get in, as in it's not completed, but also how do you talk about it, and how do you let the students know that you're assessing it fairly, and that you are treating it as seriously as you would if it was complete, which I think has been great in terms of the kind of conversations we've had about the work. It's been really interesting, in a way that when you've run a course for a few years, or run a module for a few years, and you just go through it, things just get done, and you kind of don't have those conversations. So trying to pick out as many rewarding moments from it as possible, I think it's been
yeah.
part of
I
my
mean,
headset.
no, it's been really interesting, because I just had a film that was submitted, just a clip of a film, and it just looks great. And I'm so sorry for the filmmaker who's had to basically she's had to put storyboards edited in to the middle of the film where bits are missing that they couldn't finish off because everything was shut down before the shoot could be ended. And I just feel so sorry for her because it looks, when I always think that the criteria of a good student film is when it doesn't look like a student film. You just think it looks like a film.
Yeah.
And this does look like that. So yeah, it's sad, but also great that the work is good and it's still going to, in a sense, the marks are kind of by the by, aren't they? At this point, it's like, it's going to get a good mark, even if it is incomplete in that sense. Yeah. So interesting. But yeah, just that's what's going on right now. But
cool.
Good to have the opportunity to do a lot of podcast episodes that are coming up, and also talk about a lot of films that we've managed to see, which is why we put this bonus on.
Yeah, it's a boom time for the watching and the podcasting, which is one of the kind of positive sort of effects of the lockdown. And we thought it'd be good to just chat about some of the things that we've both seen recently, and also where I've caught up with stuff that you've seen. So probably start with those, actually, I suppose.
Yeah, go for it.
I finally saw, a lot of these are thanks to Mubi. Really kind of amazing kind
top
of
form, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, just the new stuff that they've got is really, really special. So I finally saw Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and also listened to your excellent bonus with B. So thanks to B for coming on. Great episode. What was really great about it was really, kind of that in the moment trying to formulate kind of an understanding and an ideas around something, but the excitement about the film was palpable, which was really great. I really enjoyed listening to that. I saved it until after I'd seen the film, so there was no spoilers, and there was quite a lot of spoilers in the in the chat, which is fine, but I'm glad I did it that way around.
Absolutely. I mean, it was obviously what we thought, and I don't know if I've heard anyone actually have a negative thing to say about it. I mean, I know we're in the sort of art house circles, and it is a kind of film that's going to appeal to a particular kind of viewer, I think, that we know, but I can't even, I can't think of anyone who's well, is it really all that? It really is all that, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. It's extraordinary. Absolutely blown away. For people listening who listened to the 100th episode, the film that I mentioned, I watched, I kind of wonder what it'd be like on the big screen, but was still blown away by was this one. Just looks exquisite. The whole thing is just absolutely phenomenal. And I've not heard a dissenting word, and I imagine that it's the sort of film that even if you didn't necessarily like it, it's undeniable in terms of its craft, in terms of its confidence, in terms of the way it's put together, and it's the aesthetic kind of coherence and the design and the performance. It's just fantastic. Absolutely kind of blown away by it. And you mentioned In the Mood for Love, which it kind of did remind me of in terms of that experience. And the other one was Moonlight as well. That just, I was so into that story of those people and that love story, and just the way everything felt so perfectly suited to the telling of the story, the sound design, the visual look of the film. Everything was just working in complete harmony, and just a really, really great love story, which is both specific to the context of being a lesbian love story, but also is just so overwhelmingly emotionally crafted that it's not the kind of, it's not for me because I'm heterosexual kind of thing. Like it's just a beautiful love story, and it's absolutely gorgeously told, I thought.
No, without a doubt, it's to be honest, I'm trying to figure out when my sort of second viewing of it is going to be, and what the context of that is. I kind of don't want to throw it on and just watch it again. I want there to be a sort of almost a reason to have the second viewing. And no, I'm not going to, it's not a film I don't think that I'm going to write about, but what I might do is view it with with a view to make some notes to put it into a lecture of some kind, whether it's to do with film and philosophy or something like that, you know what I mean, and art and aesthetics, because it's just right for that kind of a lecture, you know, when you're talking about the aesthetics of art and how that transposes into movies. I think it would be a great case study for that.
Yeah, and also about the politics of the history of aesthetics.
Yeah.
You know, it does that as well.
Yeah, no, without a doubt.
So beautifully. Yeah, that I was thinking similar. You know, one of those films you watch, and it's like I can't wait to teach this. You know, I can't wait to have that. And there were so many lovely touches that I just thought were fantastic. I loved her jacket, that kind of Wuthering Heights jacket. That,
yeah.
You know, just things like that. Just as soon as she put it on, it was like that's the perfect jacket. I love. I mean, you know, I might get quite kind of emotional and kind of physical. When things happen, and when she goes to see the painting at the end, and it's like she sees page 28, I was just like out of my chair.
Yeah.
You know, I was just like, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like it's one of those things. It's so obvious when you see it.
Yeah.
But it was unexpected because it's like just the mastery of the storytelling.
And the sound is amazing as well, because the sound is actually a kind of thematic element, isn't it? Because there's the playing of the piano, and then they go to that when they're having the campfire scene.
That's extraordinary.
And the way that sound design just immerses you into the environment, and almost it reminded me a little bit what Catherine Wheatley was talking about in terms of sound as an expression of existence for women.
Yeah.
You know, and then, you know, obviously towards the end when she's seeing this full production and it has that meaning, and the way that the camera just sort of ends on her like imbibing this sonic experience was just fantastic. It's as good as anything that I've seen sort of representational of somebody just having the music like seep into their soul, as it were, you know, as close as you can get to kind of experiencing that.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Other notes I've got, a lot of the stuff that I was going to talk about is kind of mentioned in the last one, so I won't go into it, but just to kind of expand on that, the relationship with the maid, I just thought the sequence where the three of them are at the house together was one of the best and most touching sequences of female friendship and domesticity you've seen. You know, like absolutely leveled that hierarchy of the three of them. You know, the kind of the artist, the maid, and the lady. You know, and just seeing them spend time together and cook together and play cards, and you know, no affectation on it, just really, really touching. I love that whole sequence, and then it just added so much weight to the abortion sequence that you talked about. You know, you just so believed these characters and their relationship and their kind of innate understanding of being women. You know, that was so unspoken. Most of it was unspoken. It was just performed and lived, and it was absolutely wonderful. Absolutely fantastic. Mentioned there about sound and that kind of women and sound and representation of kind of sound in terms of how it how it plays a role in women's lives in different forms. I thought was a huge part of the other film that I saw that you've already seen, which was Kitty Green's The Assistant.
Oh
which I watched on Friday.
Oh right, yeah, we haven't touched on that yet.
No. And just how that kind of garbled toad-like sound of the boss was kind of used throughout the film. Just added such a layer of discomfort and ickiness. Everyone said that's the word I've used, was icky, as an experience. But it was so well done, you know, like it was so perfectly kind of underwater garbled, oily kind of sound. It was just absolutely brilliant. I thought that was great, that film, as well. Just how kind of relentlessly depressing it was. But also how kind of nimble it was as a piece of filmmaking. You know, it's really well written. Again, the performances are great. Moves along at a clip, packs a load of information. It doesn't feel like it's dwelling on how miserable it is, but you really get that sense of it. I just thought, like, even in film, you know, which we know through the Weinstein, the Me Too era, you know, kind of assumed for a long time, is like even in film, most of the people live a miserable existence. You know? And it's male and female. Like from the, you know, if you're not an executive at the top, your existence is miserable, and it's just a series of shared humiliations, and how that is par for the course for the world.
Yeah.
You know, like you shit on people below you and next to you because the person above you is shitting on you, and you know, there's very few people that aren't being shat on.
Yeah, but the subtle levels of being shat on though, because there was obviously the actress who turned up who was having an affair, or the model, and got a job in the office for no reason other than you know, for the obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But it's like the assistant, the protagonist, was kind of, you know, obviously had a feeling about that she had an advantage, but really it was just a different kind of type of being shat on, really. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, there's just so many. I mean, and the sort of interestingly, you know, that word microaggressions is sort of used against itself in a lot of ways. I think sometimes it's like, oh, you know, it's like seen as a politically correct tool that can be dismissed, but you really felt that those microaggressions in this film were just sort of captured, you know, minute on minute all the time. And then obviously when it gets to that scene in the center, which was just so David Mamet all over, you know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen the play Oleana. It just reminded me of that a lot, you know?
Yeah, no, I know Oleana. And it was interesting. I don't know if you've seen Succession yet.
No.
Which is a brilliant TV show. It's a bonus episode, so I can talk about TV.
Yeah.
But Matthew Macfadyen plays a kind of similar character in Succession, much more kind of goofy and evil in Succession, but certainly on that kind of spectrum of, you know, kind of faux niceness, sinister, you know, like manipulation. And that scene was just so believable in terms of the way that's going to go, and just the chill of it. By the time she gets back next door, he's already told the boss, and everyone knows. Yeah, and it's just like, wow, like just really, really uncomfortable, but perfectly played.
Yeah.
And yeah, all those little things that she does, just the kind of the daily routine. And one of them which really stuck out is she picks up the needles, and I just thought, like, in a COVID context, it kind of, the one thing I thought was like, what does work look like, you know, in terms of that? You know, she goes around, she picks up all of his cutlery, all of his plates, all of his condoms, everything is just like, that's her job, you know. And what will change? And my sadness was probably nothing. The expectation is that you're still gonna pick up my disease-ridden, germ-ridden, because that's your job, that's your station, you know. I just think, wow, the world is a really shitty place.
Yeah, but I mean, what's interesting about the context of it as well, because at the beginning it doesn't really let you have all the information in terms of the context, that, you know, you sort of gather that it's a production of, because I thought it was I first thought it was like a high class escort agency. It's almost, you know what I mean? And then I thought, is it a porno production company? And then it's just a regular, you know, actually I think probably quite big international production company it was supposed to be. And and it's almost like, actually, is it worse working in that quote unquote glamorous environment? You know what I mean? Because like, if you were working in a call center in a car showroom or something, or whatever, you know, whatever business it is, you can't pretend to yourself there's any glamour attached to that. Or, you know, I'm assuming you can't. But like, that girl probably could, you know, the parallel of that woman who exists in reality will go to her mates and say, oh, I work in the film industry.
Yeah.
And, you know, the glamour of it is so not there in this film, is so away from this particular context. But it sort of points to that idea that, you know, that we tell ourselves stories about the film industry that are so far away from the truth. It's, you know, it's not even real.
Yeah, and the glamour is waylaid, isn't it? It's like, you know, the guy sort of, and in that HR meeting, he says, oh, what do you want to do? And she's like, a producer. And he's like, well, you could be, you know. It's like, I'll get to the point where all of this is water under the bridge kind of thing. But it's like, well, who do you have to step on, and how, you know, things you have to do in order to get to that point where it is glamorous, you know. And even then, you know, there's, for most people, you know, the glamour is a strange thing, because the making of the work is not particularly glamorous, you know. It's hard, you know. So the glamour is always kind of offset to the these kind of small pockets of contained, and you just think like, I just thought it's never seemed worth it to me, even then. But I just thought it was a really, really well balanced film in terms of the fact that it was presenting something, but not neglecting a kind of concerted formal approach. And I thought I love the main actress, Julia Garner. She's in Ozark, which I really love her in that. And
I've not seen her before, but she's really, really great, because there's a sort of iciness there, but it's like it's really a fragility that she's just got this kind of like this almost mask on for a lot of the film, which is she's very good. It's very good.
Everything's kind of just hitting her all the time in terms of like what she's having to deal with. So I caught up with those two, and then the other things that we haven't talked about, but I think we're new to all of us, were the new Cotting whalebone box, the new Lorraine, Pablo Lorraine.
Yes, of course.
And I don't know if you saw the Grand Bazaar, the Jody Mack.
Yeah, I saw. I had that on. Yeah. I watched quite a bit of that. So I don't know. I mean, the Cotting is, it's Cotting, that's for sure. No, I mean, it's an interesting one again in this sort of environment, getting out there, and this sort of self-reflexive element to it, and the poetic moving in and out, the dreamscape, and this idea of the construction of a kind of psychological experience that doesn't match up to reality, but then you go off to try and find it in reality. It's really, really interesting stuff. And like, again, a sort of film that I hate. Sometimes I really hate saying this, but like preparing yourself for an Andrew Cotting film is, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I'll throw this on and see what happens. No, you really won't. You'll sit there and you'll either turn it off because you're not in the mood, or you'll just like exercise anything else and just think, okay, what is going on here? Because it's he is a filmmaker he's making a statement about cinema every time he's making a film, really, or art even more broadly.
No, I think that's fair. There's definitely a kind of a preparation to watch it, and what I thought was interesting here was that his films always ask a lot in terms of, they ask a lot in terms of the engagement with the form and the variety of forms that he uses. So like you say, there is it's not an expected or a familiar experience unless you've seen a lot of his work. But what was interesting about the whalebone box was it was asking a lot in terms of your kind of willingness to believe in the kind of the central conceit of the work, which was kind of magic, myth, and that kind of real blurring between reality and kind of fiction, more so than Lek and the Dogs. In terms of really pushing that idea of, well, if you're going to come along, I'm going to ask you to suspend your, what he assumes is your belief, I think, about these things aren't real. And it's, the way he's kind of forging these connections to make them feel real, I think, is really interesting. And felt very, very, very deliberate and very determined in that way, which just kind of made for a very intense experience for me, because it really took a lot of work to stay on board with it, and the reward was great, because at the end I found it very moving towards the end, because you felt like I felt like I've been on the journey with him, and him, and I love the way he captured the physicality of the box through Ian Sinclair's just difficulty, of trying to, and how much physical effort must have been involved in actually making the work. But it's very, very Cotting. Just it was interesting because when he came down to Falmouth, he was talking about it. I completely forgot that he was making it, and it was the excitement that we were talking about this box and what he was going to do with it, with Ian, was so palpable in the room, and that's what again was really clear in the film, was a real love of telling a story in that way.
I mean, it's to me, he's going for it. All that myth and fable stuff is part of his MO, really, isn't it? But I think what was interesting is sort of about the idea of the box. It's kind of like that device, isn't it, in cinema, where it's like the unknown that you can project onto. It's like 2001, the obelisk. It becomes whatever whatever you think it is, and the box is the same thing, and it's like gives you a freedom then to say, oh, what comes out of this box could be anything, you know. And it could, and it's not just physical things, it's like emotions, and it's like dreams, and it's where I suppose psychologically the equivalent of stashing everything dark and mysterious about what you do and don't know about yourself or the world and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I thought it was smart the way it kind of alluded to Pandora's box in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. It's kind of which is why, again, I think it required such a step towards, because it's what you get out of the box, what you put into the box. You know, it's a very kind of direct relationship in it as an energy, which I thought was really great. And it reminded me a lot of Guy Maddin's work, this one.
Yeah.
You know, surprisingly Maddin-esque in terms of the different forms, and then that kind of very surreal flights of fancy into ideas, which was really enjoyed it. Well done, Andrew.
And Lorraine, what did you make of Pablo?
It was, I loved it. I mean, it just looked amazing, and I was so. I just thought it was so like in your face in terms of this character. Like, she was just absolutely, she just did not care. You know, and it was kind of thrilling, really. Really, in a transgressive way. He does these characters so well, I think, you know, and it was nice to watch it, having seen all of his work up to that point, and just sort of see where it fits. But to know that he loves spending time in these fucked up corners with these people who are just like unapologetic about who they are, and making that uncomfortable for the audience. But this felt much more alive formally, you know, kind of really like neon, look, beautiful. Music obviously played a big part. These kind of these pyromaniac sequences, just absolutely incredible. What was my note? Was neon bleakness is what I've termed it. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I really liked it, I have to say, and it's funny because I think it is one of those films that is a polemic in ways that people interpret. Like, say, for example, the narrative. I've read where people have said, "Oh, the narrative is obvious and simple," and then other people are like, you have no idea what's going on, you know. And it's like, well, which is it, you know? And I think one of the interesting things, because I listened to the actress, the lead actress, sort of talk about the character, and then read a little bit of Lorraine talking about the film, and they were both sort of almost sort of defending her and giving her positive qualities. And I was like, that's not really how I read this character, you know, and read anyone really, because they were all sort of compromised in certain ways, you know, and you never really got a handle on where blame lay. You know, Bernal was pretty scuzzy at certain times, but then, you know what I mean? You know, he wasn't any. At certain points, he wasn't any better or worse than she was, and the way she just went in and disrupted everybody else's bourgeois existence. And then at the end of the film, they all come together in this kind of like polyamorous, whatever that family structure was at the end, was kind of really, that almost was again, I'd read people who had said, oh, well, how can you have that happy ending where everybody's in a family where they all get on? And it was just kind of like, I don't think that was that. It was more of like we're all fucked up, you know, kind of way.
I mean, I certainly never read it as a happy ending.
I
read it as like, this is kind of this is how it's going to be unless we all go our independent separate ways. Like, if I want a family and I want to still be with these people, then this is the only option. And that great table sequence at the end where she kind of she makes it clear to everyone how she sees it all. And they're like, well, it's either her way or there's no way. You know. What's interesting is watching it is, part of me was thinking, I bet people have a real problem with this because it doesn't do what so many people want from their cinema now, which is easy explanations for the morality. You know, it's not an easy film in terms of a moral position. And she's, you know, I found her immensely kind of interesting and likable at some points because of that kind of undiluted determination to do what she wanted, which just felt radical. Not only from a female character, but just from a kind of contemporary film character where there wasn't really any wrestling. What she's obviously wrestling with is what she's done before the film starts. She wants to make amends for it in her own way, which is for whatever reason, she made the decision, or she was pushed into it, or whatever. She wants to reverse it, and that's it's kind of almost like, it reminded me of Lee Marvin in Point Blank. Like, this is my end goal, and these are the steps I need to take to get to that, and nothing is going to come in the way of that. But that's not what people want, is it? They want a kind of political statement, or a disclaimer which says,
and it to be wrapped up neatly.
Yeah, and it's not neat at all.
No, it's not. I mean, the actress's name is Mariana Di Girolamo, just to say, because we keep calling her she, so I just quickly look that up again. But yeah, an amazing performance, and obviously the sort of dance element of it, I think, is key, because it is that sense of the body being this sort of tool of reverberation with the world in many ways, and it's like the ability to be able to let go of the self, in this physical kind of way, was matching up to this kind of ideology. And I think what's interesting is this, is this saying something about the growing impatience of the young with, systems and structures of power that are there. Maybe it is a film that's trying to say something about that. But that's why I love Pablo Larraín's films, because I think that they do have the courage of their convictions, because there's the amount of times we say we like films, but then it just kind of, it maybe cops out at the end, and his films just they don't cop out at the end. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting, that point, because I love that sequence where Bernal's character's sort of slagging off reggaeton and saying you should be dancing like this, and then that one of Aimer's friends sort of does that great speech about what that music really is, and it's just it's a pure class, kind of defense, and it was because that it's interesting, like that there's this idea of what's serious art and what young people should be into, and it's like, well, actually, from our perspective, this has a kind of artistic and a cultural validity, and it just created this chasm between them and him, and his elitism and his idea of himself just kind of got exploded, which I thought was really great. And then that sequence where there's that great montage, almost like a Bollywood montage across the city, where they're kind of like this dance sequence which kind of flits between sort of garage to kind of to playground and stuff like that. It's just absolutely electric, and really kind of clever way of rooting it in terms of the socio kind of economic and cultural realities of these characters, which just felt really expansive for him, like thinking of Tony Manero, thinking of The Club, their worlds are quite insular and they're quite contained, and this felt much more expansive, which was just nice, kind of seeing him push out in those ways, I just thought it was great. Just loved it.
Brilliant. And finally,
I mean, there's not much to say about the Grand Bazaar, really. I mean, it's just a really interesting experimental kind of collage piece. I've been watching a lot of Barbara Hammer, so there was interesting kind of parallels in terms of the construction of the movie. My notes were, there's a great bit with Skype beats. There's kind of the music kind of plays around with Skype, which felt very of the moment, and the whole film felt of the moment in terms of global movement and how the things that we see every day come to be where they are, how they start, how they moved, kind of the capitalist machine of movement. I thought was really cleverly and beautifully put together. It made me think about filmmaking as research, kind of could really see the thesis in the work, which was interesting. And I love the kind of sneeze at the end, which you haven't seen yet, you haven't heard yet. There's a lovely bit at the end where, the tactility that's felt throughout in terms of how the film's put together, and also how the material that is in the film is put together kind of is kind of exposed at the end with a really lovely kind of funny moment, which is obviously a mistake that's been kept in beautifully.
Yeah. I mean, it reminded me a lot of Annie Albers, really, at the Tate exhibition that I saw when, we could go to places. But that, just the kind of, I like all that abstract nature of patterns and the sort of Bauhaus element to it, but the way that was integrated with different aspects of media and culture in so many different ways. I mean, I think that I enjoyed the way that there were different things like textiles and the clothes, and were being given a social context, but not in an interesting experimental kind of way, kept you engaged and kept you into it, because you were kind of like, oh, what's coming now? Where's it going now? And there's enough kind of the visual element of it that was, it's good enough on it in its own right as a sort of visual piece to keep you interested and keep you watching, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and it's her first feature length work, I think. So it's interesting having seen a couple of her shorts to see how she was going to kind of approach that. And I think she's kind of she did that quite well in terms of being able to move through different sort of sections of the work. So yeah,
great
there. Good watching.
No, very good, very good. Have you got anything on the cards coming up that you want to see?
I've got just had a couple of Blu-rays sent through, which I'll be reviewing on one of the upcoming episodes.
Great.
There's a new by NWR has just dropped on their
website.
Yeah. The latest one up there. So and I've just finished the rereading the Cassavetes on Cassavetes book. So I'm going to treat myself to a rewatch of Love Streams at the weekend on my Criterion collection. So that's my upcoming viewing. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to finish off the Losey stuff.
I watched The Servant the other night. So good.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And I'm going to, I'm to be honest with you, I want to really give enough attention to Mark Cousins' Women Make Film, seeing as we've got prior access to that, and we've got an episode coming up on it, obviously.
Yeah, I'm 9.5 hours in.
Yeah.
So fascinating work. Really excited to talk to him this week about that project.
Great. Well, it's lovely to see you and talk to you. Hopefully, really nice. Our Patreon guys will appreciate this. Let us know if you think this has been worth it, or you just rather not see us and listen to us. That's fine too.
We won't don't take really offense mind. If you don't want to see us.
Yeah, I don't know whether photogenic is something that you would align to us. Maybe we've just got the faces for podcasting.
Great. Well, cool. Lovely to talk to you, mate, as always.
Cool. Take it easy.
You too.